Hey guys, tonight we're going to step back 4,000 years into the dusty, sun-baked streets of ancient Egypt, where the air shimmers with heat and the sound of haggling voices echoes through narrow alleyways lined with merchants selling everything from perfumed oils to golden jewelry. You're walking barefoot on warm stone pathways, feeling the grit of sand between your toes as you navigate a world where shopping meant something entirely different, where coins didn't exist, where your lunch might cost you a handful of grain, and where the art of negotiation could mean the difference between eating well or going hungry. The reality is, you probably wouldn't survive a single shopping trip in ancient Egypt without accidentally offending a merchant, miscalculating a trade, or getting completely lost in the labyrinthine marketplace systems that operated on principles so foreign to our modern minds that even buying bread would feel like solving a complex puzzle. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to hear where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now let's find that cozy spot, pull a blanket around you, and gently drift into tonight's calm adventure. You find yourself standing at the edge of a bustling Egyptian marketplace in the city of Memphis, around 2500 BCE, during the height of the Old Kingdom. The morning sun hasn't yet reached its punishing zenith, but already you can feel its warmth spreading across your shoulders as you take in the incredible scene before you. This isn't just any ordinary market. This is the economic heart of one of the world's first great civilizations, a place where the concept of shopping as we know it is still thousands of years away from being invented. The first thing that strikes you is the absence of anything resembling money. No coins jingle in pouches, no paper bills change hands, no digital transactions beep their completion. Instead, you witness something far more intimate and complex, a sophisticated system of barter that requires skill, patience, and an almost mathematical understanding of relative values that would challenge even the most seasoned modern negotiator. You watch as a woman approaches a grain merchant, her arms laden with beautiful linen cloth that she's spent weeks weaving. The merchant examines the quality of her work, running the fabric between his weathered fingers, testing its strength and admiring the evenness of the weave. This isn't a quick transaction. It's a careful evaluation that considers not just the immediate value of the cloth, but its potential for future trade, its durability, and even the reputation of the weaver herself. The negotiation begins with what seems like casual conversation. They discuss the weather, the recent flooding of the Nile, news from other parts of the kingdom. But beneath this social pleasantry, both parties are conducting a complex mental calculation. The woman knows exactly how much grain her family needs for the month. The merchant, meanwhile, is considering his own needs. Perhaps he has a customer who's been asking for high-quality linen, or maybe his own family needs new clothing. As you observe this interaction, you begin to understand that shopping in ancient Egypt was never just about the immediate exchange of goods. It was about relationships, reputation, and long-term thinking. The merchant might accept slightly less favorable terms today if he knows this weaver produces consistently good work and will return as a reliable trading partner. The weaver in turn might throw in an extra piece of cloth to ensure she gets the best grain, knowing that her family's health depends on the quality of what she brings home. You drift closer to another stall where a metal worker is trading copper tools for pottery. The potter has arranged his wares with obvious pride, large storage jars for grain, smaller vessels for oil and wine, delicate bowls painted with intricate designs. Each piece represents hours of careful work, from the initial shaping of the clay to the final firing in kilns that reach temperatures that would be dangerous to approach. The metalworker examines a large storage jar, tapping it gently to listen for any flaws that might indicate weakness. He's not just buying pottery for his own use. He's thinking about his entire household, his workers, his own future trading needs. Perhaps he'll trade some of these pots to farmers in exchange for food, or to other craftsmen who need containers for their materials. What fascinates you most is how both men seem to have an encyclopedic knowledge of relative values. They discuss not just the immediate trade, but reference other recent transactions, market conditions, seasonal variations in supply and demand. The potter mentions that clay has been harder to find recently due to changes in the Nile's flooding patterns. The metalworker notes that copper has become more expensive because of increased demand from the pyramid construction projects. You realize you're witnessing something that modern economics textbooks would call a perfect market, one where all participants have complete information and can make rational decisions based on true supply and demand. But it's also something more human and more complex than any economic model could capture. Moving deeper into the marketplace, you encounter a spice merchant whose stall fills the air with aromas that transport you to distant lands. Cinnamon from far-off Ceylon, pepper from India, frankincense from the mysterious lands to the south. These aren't just seasonings. They're luxury goods that represent incredible journeys, dangerous trade routes, and the accumulated wealth of successful merchants. A well-dressed woman approaches the spice stall, and you can tell immediately that this is a different kind of transaction. Her jewelry and fine clothing mark her as someone from the upper classes, perhaps the wife of a government official or successful merchant. The spice trader's demeanor changes subtly. He becomes more deferential, but also more careful in his presentations. She's not here to trade grain or pottery. Instead, she's brought gold jewelry, beautifully crafted pieces that represent not just material value, but artistic achievement. The spice merchant examines each piece carefully, not just for the purity of the gold, but for the skill of the craftsmanship. In ancient Egypt, the line between currency and art was often blurred. The negotiation that follows is like watching a delicate dance. Both parties understand that they're dealing with goods that have value far beyond their immediate utility. The spices will enhance food and provide medicinal benefits, but they also represent social status, the ability to afford exotic luxuries that most people never see. The jewelry represents not just the gold it contains, but the skill of master craftsmen and the social position of the woman who owns it. As you watch this exchange, you begin to understand how shopping in ancient Egypt was deeply tied to social hierarchy and identity. What you bought, how you bought it, and whom you bought it from, all communicated important information about your place in society. There were no anonymous transactions, no impersonal exchanges. Every purchase was a social interaction that reinforced relationships and social structures. You wander toward the food section of the market, where the sights and sounds are almost overwhelming. Vendors call out the quality of their goods in voices that carry over the general hubbub of the crowd. Fresh fish from the Nile glisten on beds of reeds, their scales catching the morning light. Baskets overflow with dates, figs, and pomegranates. The bread vendors have arranged their loaves in careful pyramids, each one representing hours of work from grain to finished product. Here, you observe the most basic form of ancient Egyptian commerce, people trading food for the necessities of daily life. A fisherman exchanges his morning catch for bread and beer. A farmer trades vegetables for pottery to store his grain. A woman brings eggs from her chickens and leaves with enough flour to feed her family for several days. But even these seemingly simple transactions follow complex rules and customs. The fisherman knows exactly which types of fish are most valued and prices his catch accordingly. The farmer has timed his trip to the market to coincide with the peak freshness of his produce. The woman with eggs has chosen her trading partners based on relationships built up over months or years of successful exchanges. You notice that certain individuals seem to serve as intermediaries or facilitators, people who help others calculate fair exchanges or who vouch for the quality of goods. These aren't official roles, but rather positions of trust and expertise that have developed naturally within the community. An elderly man helps a young farmer understand the current value of his grain. A woman known for her knowledge of textiles examines cloth for other buyers. As the morning progresses and the sun climbs higher, you observe how the marketplace adapts to changing conditions. Vendors of perishable goods become more willing to negotiate as they face the prospect of items spoiling in the heat. Others begin packing away their most valuable or delicate items to protect them from the intense midday sun. The rhythm of the market is tied, not just to the daily cycle of sun and heat, but to longer patterns, the flooding of the Nile, the agricultural seasons, religious festivals, and the demands of major construction projects. You overhear conversations about how the current pyramid construction is affecting the availability of certain materials, how last year's flood was particularly good for certain crops, how an upcoming religious festival will increase demand for specific items. You drift toward a section of the market where more specialized craftsmen display their wares. Here, a jeweler has laid out an array of rings, necklaces, and bracelets that would rival anything in a modern high-end boutique. Each piece is unique, handcrafted with techniques passed down through generations of artisans. The gold gleams with a warmth that seems to capture and hold the Egyptian sunlight. A customer examines a particularly elaborate necklace, and you watch as the jeweler explains not just the materials and craftsmanship, but the symbolic meaning of the various elements. The scarab beetles represent rebirth and protection. The lotus flowers symbolize creation and rebirth. The Eye of Horus offers divine protection. In ancient Egypt, jewelry wasn't just decoration, it was a form of spiritual armor, a way to carry the protection of the gods with you wherever you went. The negotiation for this piece is particularly fascinating to observe. The customer isn't just considering the material value of the gold and precious stones, but the spiritual and social value of owning such a piece. The jeweler, in turn, is selling not just an object, but a story, a connection to the divine, a marker of social status. You begin to understand that in ancient Egypt, the concept of shopping was inseparable from concepts of identity, spirituality, and social relationships. Every purchase was an investment not just in material goods, but in one's place in the cosmic order. Moving on, you encounter a papyrus merchant whose stall displays the writing material that would preserve Egyptian civilization for thousands of years. Rolls of papyrus in various sizes and qualities are arranged with care, from rough sheets suitable for everyday record-keeping to fine, smooth sheets worthy of important documents or artwork. The papyrus merchant explains to a customer how the material is made, how the papyrus plants are harvested from the Nile marshes, how the stems are cut into strips, how those strips are laid out in cross patterns and pressed until they form a smooth writing surface. The process is labor-intensive and requires considerable skill, which explains why good papyrus commands high prices in trade. A scribe approaches the stall, examining the papyrus with the careful eye of someone whose livelihood depends on the quality of his materials. He runs his fingers over the surface, checking for smoothness and consistency. He holds sheets up to the light to check for weak spots or irregularities. This isn't a casual purchase. The quality of his papyrus will affect the quality of his work, which in turn affects his reputation and his ability to command good prices for his services. The negotiation involves not just the immediate transaction, but discussions of future needs. The scribe mentions upcoming projects that will require large quantities of papyrus. The merchant offers to reserve his best materials for this valued customer. They discuss payment schedules that will allow the scribe to pay as he completes his work and receives payment from his own clients. You realize you're witnessing the ancient equivalent of a business-to-business transaction, complete with considerations of credit, quality guarantees, and long-term business relationships. The complexity rivals anything in the modern business world, but it's all conducted through personal relationships and verbal agreements, backed by reputation and community oversight. As the sun reaches its zenith and the heat becomes almost unbearable, you observe how the marketplace adapts. Many vendors retreat to shaded areas or temporary shelters. The pace of transactions slows, becoming more deliberate and careful. This is when the most serious negotiations take place, when both buyers and sellers have time to carefully consider their options without the pressure of the morning rush. You find yourself in conversation with an elderly merchant who has been trading in this marketplace for decades. He explains how commerce has evolved even within his lifetime, how trade routes have expanded, bringing new goods and new trading partners. He describes the impact of major construction projects on the local economy, how the demand for materials and labor affects everything from food prices to the availability of craftsmen. He tells you about the seasonal rhythms of trade, how certain goods are only available at specific times of year, how traders plan their journeys to coincide with harvest seasons and favorable weather. He describes the role of the Nile in Egyptian commerce, not just as a source of water and fertile soil, but as a highway that connects communities throughout the kingdom. The merchant explains the importance of reputation in Egyptian commerce. In a world without written contracts or legal enforcement mechanisms, a trader's word is literally their bond. A single dishonest transaction can ruin years of relationship building. Conversely, a reputation for fair dealing can open doors throughout the trading network. He describes how disputes are resolved through community elders, through respected merchants who serve as arbitrators, through the implicit threat of social ostracism for those who cheat or deal unfairly. The system works because everyone's economic survival depends on maintaining the trust and cooperation that makes trade possible. As afternoon shadows begin to grow longer, you observe a different rhythm in the marketplace. The desperate urgency of the early morning has given way to a more relaxed atmosphere. Vendors who have made their essential sales for the day become more willing to engage in experimental trades or to take chances on new products. You watch as a young craftsman approaches various vendors with samples of his work, small decorative items that he's hoping to establish a market for. Some vendors examine his pieces with interest. Others dismiss them quickly, but each interaction is a learning experience, helping him understand what the market values and how to present his work more effectively. This is innovation happening in real time, new products being tested, new trading relationships being formed, new niches being discovered. The marketplace serves not just as a place of exchange, but as a laboratory for economic and social experimentation. A group of foreign traders arrives, their exotic appearance and unfamiliar goods creating a stir of excitement. They've brought items that local people have never seen before: strange foods, unusual textiles, tools made with unfamiliar techniques. The challenge now is establishing values for these new goods in the context of the existing trading system. You watch as local merchants and customers examine the foreign goods with a mixture of curiosity and caution. How do you value something you've never seen before? How do you negotiate a fair trade when neither party fully understands what the other is offering? The solution involves bringing in experts, people known for their knowledge of foreign goods, traders who have traveled widely, craftsmen who can evaluate the quality of unfamiliar techniques. The negotiation becomes a community effort, with multiple people contributing their expertise to help establish fair trading relationships. This process reveals another crucial aspect of ancient Egyptian commerce: its openness to new ideas and new trading partners. While the system was based on tradition and established relationships, it was also flexible enough to accommodate innovation and change. As evening approaches and the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the marketplace begins to wind down. Vendors start packing their remaining goods, securing their valuables, cleaning their stalls. But the day's business isn't over. Many of the relationships formed and negotiations begun during the day will continue into the evening and beyond. You follow some traders to a nearby tavern where they continue their discussions over food and beer. Here, in a more relaxed atmosphere, they share information about market conditions in other cities, discuss upcoming opportunities, plan joint ventures and collaborative trading expeditions. The tavern serves as an informal extension of the marketplace, a place where the social and relationship-building aspects of commerce can flourish. Deals that began in the formal market setting are finalized over shared meals. New partnerships are formed through introductions and recommendations. Information about distant markets and trading opportunities is exchanged freely. You realize that in ancient Egypt, commerce was never just about the immediate exchange of goods. It was about building and maintaining the social networks that made complex economic activity possible. Every transaction was embedded in a web of relationships that extended far beyond the marketplace itself. An experienced trader explains to you how these networks operate across vast distances. He describes how a piece of jewelry made in Memphis might eventually end up in Nubia, having passed through dozens of hands in a chain of trades that spans hundreds of miles and months of time. Each link in this chain represents not just a transaction, but a relationship built on trust and mutual benefit. He tells you about the role of seasonal festivals and religious celebrations in the trading calendar. These events bring together people from across the region, creating opportunities for major trades and the establishment of new business relationships. The religious and commercial calendars are intertwined in ways that would seem strange to modern eyes, but made perfect sense in the ancient world. As night falls and oil lamps begin to flicker to life, you witness the final transactions of the day. These tend to be either very routine exchanges between established partners or very significant deals that require the calm and privacy that evening provides. A major grain merchant finalizes a large transaction with representatives from several farming communities. The negotiation has been going on for days, involving not just the immediate exchange of grain for manufactured goods, but complex arrangements for future deliveries, credit terms, and risk-sharing agreements. The deal is sealed not with signatures on a contract, but with a shared meal and the formal exchange of token gifts. These rituals serve the same function as legal documents in our world. They create social and spiritual obligations that are just as binding as any written agreement. You observe how the conclusion of major trades is often accompanied by celebration and ceremony. The successful completion of a significant transaction isn't just good for the immediate parties involved. It strengthens the entire trading network by demonstrating that the system works, that trust is rewarded, that cooperation leads to mutual benefit. As the marketplace finally quiets for the night, you reflect on everything you've witnessed. Shopping in ancient Egypt was revealed to be something far more complex and sophisticated than simple barter. It was a social institution that encompassed economics, politics, religion, and personal relationships in ways that our modern compartmentalized world struggles to understand. The absence of money didn't make commerce simpler. It made it more complex, requiring participants to develop skills in negotiation, valuation, and relationship management that would challenge even the most sophisticated modern business people. Every transaction required careful consideration of multiple factors: immediate needs, future opportunities, social obligations, and spiritual considerations. You've seen how the marketplace served not just as a place of economic exchange, but as a center of social life, a source of information and news, a forum for innovation and experimentation, and a mechanism for maintaining the complex web of relationships that held Egyptian society together. The trading relationships you observed weren't just business arrangements. They were social bonds that created mutual obligations and shared interests across communities, social classes, and even national boundaries. These relationships provided stability and security in a world without banks, insurance companies, or government welfare systems. You've witnessed how reputation served as the foundation of the entire economic system. In a world where information traveled slowly and enforcement mechanisms were limited, the only reliable guarantee of fair dealing was the knowledge that cheaters would quickly find themselves isolated from the trading networks they depended on for survival. The market revealed itself as a place where innovation happened constantly but gradually, where new products, new techniques, and new trading relationships were tested and refined through countless small experiments. Change occurred not through dramatic disruptions but through the accumulated effect of thousands of individual decisions and adaptations. You observed how commerce in ancient Egypt was deeply integrated with other aspects of life: religious beliefs, social hierarchies, seasonal rhythms, and family relationships. There was no separation between economic activity and the rest of human experience. Every purchase had social, spiritual, and personal dimensions that modern consumers rarely consider. The sophisticated systems of valuation and exchange you witnessed demonstrated that the absence of standardized currency didn't prevent the development of complex economic relationships. Instead, it required participants to develop more nuanced understanding of value, considering not just material worth, but utility, scarcity, quality, and symbolic meaning. You've seen how the marketplace served as a mechanism for social mobility, how skilled craftsmen could improve their position through superior work, how successful traders could build networks that spanned continents, how even modest farmers could improve their circumstances through careful planning and good judgment in their trades. The role of intermediaries and experts in facilitating trades revealed how knowledge itself became a valuable commodity in the ancient economy. People who understood market conditions, could evaluate quality, or had extensive networks of contacts found their expertise in high demand. The integration of local and long-distance trade showed how even 4,000 years ago, Egypt was part of a global economy that connected Africa, Asia, and the Mediterranean world. The exotic goods in the marketplace were evidence of trading relationships that spanned thousands of miles and multiple cultures. The seasonal and cyclical nature of much economic activity demonstrated how closely ancient commerce was tied to natural rhythms. The flooding of the Nile, the agricultural calendar, the movements of trading caravans, modern commerce, with its emphasis on constant availability and instant gratification, would have seemed strange and wasteful to ancient traders who understood the importance of timing and patience. The role of community oversight and social pressure in maintaining fair dealing showed how economic relationships were embedded in broader social structures. The marketplace wasn't an anonymous space where strangers engaged in impersonal transactions. It was a community institution where everyone knew everyone else and where reputation was more valuable than gold. You realized that the Egyptian approach to commerce embodied principles that modern economists are only beginning to rediscover: the importance of social capital, the value of long-term thinking, the efficiency of reputation-based systems, the benefits of personal relationships in business dealings. The absence of interest-bearing loans and complex financial instruments didn't indicate a primitive economic system. It reflected different values and priorities. Ancient Egyptians were more concerned with stability, sustainability, and social harmony than with maximum profit or rapid growth. The integration of practical and spiritual considerations in commercial transactions reflected a worldview that didn't separate material and spiritual realms. A piece of jewelry wasn't just decoration, it was protection. A well-made tool wasn't just functional, it embodied the craftsman's relationship with the gods who guided his work. As you prepare to leave this ancient marketplace and return to your own time, you carry with you a new appreciation for the complexity and sophistication of commerce in the ancient world. What seemed at first like simple barter revealed itself to be a rich, nuanced system that met human needs for goods, services, social connection, and spiritual meaning in ways that our modern economic system struggles to match. The voices of the merchants fade as you step back through time, but their lessons remain. In a world increasingly dominated by impersonal digital transactions and global supply chains, the ancient Egyptian marketplace offers insights into more human-centered approaches to commerce, approaches that value relationships over efficiency, reputation over anonymity, and community benefit over individual profit. You've experienced firsthand how shopping could be simultaneously practical and sacred, individual and communal, local and global. You've seen how commerce could serve not just economic needs but social, spiritual, and cultural needs as well. Most importantly, you've witnessed how human beings, given the freedom and motivation to do so, can create remarkably sophisticated and effective systems for meeting their collective needs through voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit. The sun sets over the ancient marketplace, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples that reflect off the Nile in the distance. The day's commerce is complete, but the relationships it has created and strengthened will endure, forming the foundation for tomorrow's trade and the continued prosperity of this remarkable civilization. In the growing darkness, you can almost hear the echo of tomorrow's merchants already planning their offerings, preparing for another day in humanity's ongoing experiment in peaceful voluntary exchange. The dust settles on empty stalls as families gather for evening meals purchased or traded in the day's markets, and you understand that you've witnessed something far more profound than ancient shopping. You've seen the daily miracle of human cooperation that makes civilization itself possible. One transaction, one relationship, one act of trust at a time. As you drift through the torch-lit streets of ancient Memphis, still processing everything you've witnessed, you encounter one final scene that perfectly captures the essence of Egyptian commerce. In a small courtyard behind one of the workshops, an elderly craftsman is teaching his grandson the techniques of metalworking that have been passed down through generations. But this isn't just about craft technique. It's about understanding value, recognizing quality, building relationships with suppliers and customers. The old man explains how different metals behave, how to judge the purity of raw materials, how to price finished goods fairly. He shares stories of successful trades and cautionary tales of deals gone wrong. The grandson listens intently, understanding that he's receiving more than technical training. He's being initiated into a complex social and economic system that will define his adult life. The knowledge being passed down includes not just how to make things, but how to evaluate what others make, how to negotiate fairly, how to build a reputation for reliability and quality. This scene encapsulates the essence of Egyptian commerce. It was never just about immediate transactions, but about building and maintaining the human systems that made those transactions possible. Every successful trader was both an individual entrepreneur and a steward of the larger economic community. The old craftsman explains to his grandson how their family's reputation extends back generations, how their name carries weight in the marketplace because of the accumulated goodwill created by decades of fair dealing and quality work. He describes how this reputation is both their most valuable asset and their most vulnerable point, something that takes years to build but could be destroyed by a single act of dishonesty or carelessness. You realize that in ancient Egypt, economic education was inseparable from moral education. Learning to trade meant learning to be trustworthy. Learning to evaluate goods meant learning to be honest about their quality. Learning to negotiate meant learning to balance self-interest with fairness and community benefit. As the teaching session continues, neighbors and other craftsmen drift into the courtyard, drawn by the familiar sounds of instruction and discussion. What begins as a private lesson becomes a community gathering, with experienced traders sharing their own insights and experiences. This informal educational network ensures that knowledge spreads throughout the community, that innovations are shared rather than hoarded, that young people have access to the accumulated wisdom of their elders. It's a system that promotes both individual success and collective prosperity. The conversation ranges widely, from technical details about metalworking to broader questions about market trends, trade routes, and economic opportunities. You observe how seamlessly the discussion moves between practical and philosophical considerations, between immediate concerns and long-term planning. One trader describes a recent journey to distant markets, sharing information about new products he encountered, different trading customs he observed, opportunities he identified for future expeditions. His audience listens not just for information they can use directly, but for insights that might help them understand their own market better. Another craftsman discusses the challenges of maintaining quality while increasing production to meet growing demand. The group explores various solutions, bringing in additional workers, improving techniques, focusing on higher value products. The discussion reveals how ancient Egyptian businesses faced many of the same scaling challenges that modern enterprises grapple with. A woman who specializes in textile trading explains how she's built relationships with suppliers throughout the Nile Valley, creating a network that allows her to offer consistent quality and reliable delivery to her customers. Her success illustrates how even in ancient times, successful commerce often depended on sophisticated supply chain management. As the evening progresses, the conversation becomes more reflective. The elderly craftsman speaks about how commerce has changed during his lifetime, how new trade routes have brought new opportunities and new challenges. He reflects on the cycles of abundance and scarcity that every trader must learn to navigate. He describes how the great construction projects, the pyramids, temples, and palaces have created both opportunities and disruptions in the marketplace. The massive demand for materials and labor has driven up prices for some goods while creating new markets for others. Craftsmen who can adapt their skills to serve these projects prosper, while those who can't find themselves struggling. The group discusses the delicate balance between serving local needs and pursuing opportunities in distant markets. A trader who focuses too much on exotic goods might neglect his local customer base, while one who never ventures beyond familiar territory might miss opportunities for growth and learning. These conversations reveal how ancient Egyptian traders thought strategically about their businesses in ways that would be familiar to modern entrepreneurs. They considered market positioning, competitive advantages, risk management, and growth strategies, but they did so within a framework that prioritized relationships, reputation, and community benefit alongside individual profit. As the night deepens and the gathering begins to disperse, you witness the informal networking that extended the marketplace into social life. Traders make plans to meet again, to share information about upcoming opportunities, to collaborate on larger projects that no single individual could handle alone. These relationships created a safety net that provided security in an uncertain world. When a trader faced unexpected challenges, a delayed shipment, quality problems with materials, sudden changes in demand, he could call on his network for assistance, advice, and sometimes direct material help. The old craftsman concludes the evening by emphasizing to his grandson that success in commerce isn't just about individual achievement, it's about contributing to the prosperity and stability of the entire community. A successful trader helps others succeed as well, creating a rising tide that lifts everyone. This philosophy of mutual benefit and shared prosperity seems to permeate Egyptian commercial culture. Competition exists, but it's balanced by cooperation. Individual ambition is encouraged, but not at the expense of community well-being. As you prepare to leave this remarkable scene, you reflect on the profound differences between ancient and modern approaches to commerce. The Egyptian system was slower, more personal, more embedded in social relationships, but it was also more stable, more sustainable, and more attentive to human needs beyond mere material acquisition. The absence of money, which initially seemed like a limitation, revealed itself to be a feature that forced participants to think more deeply about value, to build stronger relationships, to consider longer-term consequences of their actions. Every transaction required thought, negotiation, and human interaction in ways that modern point-of-sale systems eliminate. The integration of economic activity with social, spiritual, and educational functions created a richer, more meaningful commercial experience. Shopping wasn't just about acquiring goods. It was about participating in community life, maintaining relationships, and contributing to the collective well-being. The emphasis on reputation and trust created powerful incentives for honest dealing and quality work. In a system where your economic future depended on your social standing, ethical behavior wasn't just morally right, it was economically essential. The sophisticated understanding of value that allowed complex barter transactions reveals how much we may have lost in our move to standardized currency systems. Ancient traders had to develop nuanced appreciation for quality, utility, scarcity, and symbolic meaning that modern consumers rarely exercise. The seasonal and cyclical nature of much ancient commerce created rhythms of activity and rest that may have been more sustainable than our modern emphasis on constant growth and endless availability. Ancient traders understood that there were times for aggressive pursuit of opportunities and times for consolidation and reflection. The role of community oversight in maintaining fair dealing suggests alternatives to the complex legal and regulatory systems that govern modern commerce. When everyone knows everyone else, and reputation is paramount, market-based solutions to problems of fraud and abuse may be more effective than formal enforcement mechanisms. As you finally step away from the ancient marketplace and return to your own time, you carry with you not just knowledge about how shopping worked in ancient Egypt, insights into alternative ways of thinking about commerce, value, and human economic relationships. The voices of the ancient traders fade into the darkness, but their lessons echo forward through time. In an age when digital technology is transforming commerce in unprecedented ways, when global supply chains connect us to producers we'll never meet, when algorithmic systems make decisions about what we see and what we buy, the ancient Egyptian marketplace offers a reminder of the fundamentally human nature of economic activity. Perhaps most importantly, your journey through the ancient marketplace has revealed that there is nothing inevitable about our current economic systems. Human beings have created many different ways of organizing commerce, each reflecting different values and priorities. The Egyptian approach, with its emphasis on relationships, reputation, and community benefit, offers inspiration for those seeking more humane and sustainable approaches to modern economic challenges. The dust of 4,000 years settles around the empty marketplace as the last torch flames flicker and die. But the principles you've witnessed, trust, fairness, community, sustainability, and mutual benefit, remain as relevant today as they were when the pyramids were young. and the Nile was the highway of the ancient world. As the cool night air of ancient Egypt surrounds you one final time, carrying the lingering scents of spices and incense, you understand that you've experienced more than just a history lesson. You've glimpsed a different way of being human, a different way of relating to others through the essential human activity of exchange. The wisdom of the ancient marketplace whispers across the centuries, reminding us that commerce at its best is not just about profit and efficiency, but about the patient work of building trust, creating value, and nurturing the relationships that make civilization itself possible. Your journey through the bustling streets and quiet corners of ancient Egyptian commerce comes to an end. But the memories linger like the warm desert wind that has blown across this land for millennia. You've walked among people who understood that every transaction was a small act of faith in humanity's capacity for cooperation and mutual benefit. Their marketplace was more than a place of business. It was a temple to the human spirit of enterprise and the eternal hope that through trade, trust, and patience we can create abundance not just for ourselves but for our entire community. The shadows lengthen across the empty marketplace as night settles over ancient Memphis, and you realize that shopping, in its deepest sense, has always been about more than acquiring things. It's been about creating connections, building communities, and participating in the great human experiment of living together in mutual dependence and shared prosperity. You drift through the labyrinthine pathways between the now empty stalls, your footsteps echoing softly off ancient stones worn smooth by countless feet of traders, craftsmen, and customers who came before you. The night air carries whispers of conversations held 4 millennia ago, negotiations conducted with patience and wisdom that would challenge the most sophisticated modern business schools. If you enjoyed this ride, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss what's coming next. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what surprised you most about ancient Egyptian commerce, or perhaps share some details about where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your part of our wonderfully connected modern world. Drop your experiences and location in the comments below. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive and your nights filled with wonder.